All right, today we're jumping on a raft and heading down the Mississippi to talk about one of the most famous and, yeah, most controversial books in American literature, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Mark Twain's masterpiece is so much more than an adventure story. It's really a deep dive into the soul of a country that's at war with itself. And it all kicks off with a pretty bold warning from the man himself. So right out of the gate, Twain is basically daring you. He's throwing down the gauntlet. With this warning, he's telling us, hey, this isn't going to be your typical story with a nice, neat lesson at the end. He's challenging us to even try to find simple answers in a story that's designed to break every single rule. So let's get into it. Our story starts with an escape. But what exactly is our hero, Huck Finn, running from? Well, he calls it civilization. But as you're about to see, that word means two totally different and, for him, equally awful things. I mean, just look at this. Huck is stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, you've got the widow Douglas, who wants him to wear clean clothes, pray all the time, and follow a bunch of stuffy rules. On the other hand, you have his own father, Pap, a violent, raging drunk who actually kidnaps him and locks him in a cabin. Neither world is offering this kid anything that looks like real freedom. And you'd think someone would step in, right? The law, a judge? Nope. When it couldn't get any worse, society itself just completely lets him down. Even though everyone can see how cruel Pap is, a judge decides a father's rights come first. The very system that's supposed to protect Huck basically sides with his abuser, which leaves him with absolutely no choice but to find his own way out. And this is where you see just how clever and resourceful this kid is. He doesn't just run away. That's too easy. He fakes his own murder. It's wild. He gets a pig, uses its blood, smashes up the cabin with an axe. He makes it look like a real-deal crime scene so that everyone thinks he's dead. It's an incredible, desperate plan, but it's what finally gets him free. Okay, so Huck has escaped the prisons he knew on land. And where does he go? To the river, the Mississippi River. This is where the real heart of the story begins to beat. So Huck's hiding out on this island, thinking he's all alone, but he's not. He stumbles across another runaway, Jim. Turns out Jim overheard that he was about to be sold down to New Orleans, which would mean being separated from his wife and kids forever. And in that moment, you have these two outcasts, a poor white kid and an enslaved man, who realize they're both running for their lives. Their journey for freedom starts right there, together. And the raft is everything in this book. It's so much more than just transportation. It's like their own little floating island, a sanctuary. Out there on the water, all the ugly rules from the shore, the racism, the hypocrisy, they just don't exist. It's the one and only place where Huck and Jim can be truly free and, more importantly, truly equal. And this quote just captures that magic perfectly. You can just picture them floating down the river, becoming real friends. They talk about everything, from the silliest stuff to the biggest questions in the universe. It's a simple, honest friendship that Huck has never, ever found in the so-called civilized world. But of course, they can't just float down the river forever, and every single time Huck and Jim have to step foot on land, bam, they run headfirst into the exact same ugliness they're trying to escape. The shore, in this book, is where humanity shows its worst side. So first up, Huck meets the Grangerfords, and he's totally wowed by them. They've got a nice house, fancy clothes, good manners. They look like the poster family for civilized society. But just under that shiny surface, there is something absolutely savage and senseless going on. Huck's new friend, a boy his age named Buck, explains their family's 30-year feud with another family, and he says it just like that, super casual. He says nobody even remembers how it started. For Huck, this is a huge, horrifying lesson. He sees that words like honor and civilization can just be excuses for pointless, brutal violence. So after Huck barely escapes that bloodbath, he and Jim are back on the raft, but their sanctuary gets invaded by two of the most memorable slime balls in all of literature. These guys show up and claim to be a long-lost English duke and the rightful king of France. Yeah, right. They represent a whole other kind of corruption, just pure, shameless fraud. These two are the worst. They just travel from town to town, preying on people's kindness and gullibility. They'll do anything for a quick buck, pretending to be reformed pirates at a church meeting, putting on hilariously bad Shakespeare plays, and, in their lowest moment, they even try to steal an inheritance from 3 orphaned girls. It's just one con after another. And for Huck, it's a masterclass in human cruelty. Eventually, the Duke and the King get what's coming to them. The townspeople tar and feather them and run them out of town. And you'd think Huck would be happy to see it, right? But he's not. He just feels sad. Pity, even. And watching that mob justice, he comes to this simple, heartbreaking conclusion about people. So all these experiences, the violence, the hypocrisy, the fraud, it's all been pushing Huck toward one single, massive decision. This is it, the moral heart of the entire book. In his final, disgusting act, the king commits the ultimate betrayal. For a measly $40, he sells Jim to a local farmer. And just like that, Jim's dream of freedom is completely shattered, and Huck is left all alone, facing a choice that will define him forever. So what's he supposed to do? I mean, really put yourself in his shoes. Every single thing he has ever been taught, in church, in school, by the law, tells him that Jim is property and that helping him is a sin. His duty is to write a letter and turn his friend in. But his heart, his conscience, forged on that raft, it's screaming at him to do the opposite. And this is one of the most powerful moments in all of literature. He sits down. He actually writes the letter to turn Jim in. He's holding it in his hand. But he can't do it. He thinks about Jim, about their friendship, about everything they've been through, and he tears up the letter and he says those famous words. He is literally choosing his friend over his own eternal salvation. He rejects society's morality and decides to do what he knows, deep down, is right. That one decision cements this book's place as a classic. But its life after it was published has been anything but simple. And its legacy today, well, it's still really, really complicated. Now, Twain himself knew the language in the book would be a big deal. He put a special note right at the beginning explaining that he worked incredibly hard to capture the different, authentic dialects of the people who lived along the river. His goal was realism. He wanted to give a true voice to his characters, and that choice is central to all the debates that followed. And that brings us to the core argument about this book today. On one side, it's praised as this brilliant takedown of racism and a celebration of individual conscience. I mean, Huck chooses to go to hell rather than betray his friend. But on the other side, the constant use of racial slurs, while historically accurate, is incredibly painful and offensive. Plus, a lot of people feel the book's ending kind of lets Jim down. It's important to remember Twain was using satire. He was showing the absurdity of a racist society through a kid's eyes. That discomfort we feel with the language, that's part of the effect. It forces us to look at the ugliness head on. And this isn't just some academic debate, believe me. Look at this number. The book is constantly being challenged or banned in schools across America. It's a cultural lightning rod for a reason. It doesn't give us easy answers. It doesn't sugarcoat the past. It forces every new generation of readers to wrestle with these really tough questions about America. And in the end, after everything, Huck is still on the outside looking in. He says he's going to light out for the territory to escape civilization all over again. And that leaves us with Twain's huge unanswered question. If civilized society is so full of hypocrisy, violence, and injustice, and if true friendship and morality can only be found on a raft between two outcasts, then what does being civilized really mean, anyway?